Hey guys, today we're going to be showing you how to install 4-inch GDP Portals on this RZR Pro XP. The first thing we're going to do is remove all 4 wheels and tires. So the first thing we're going to do once we have our wheels and tires removed is go ahead and remove our cotter pin off of our castle nut, as well as our tie rod end. We'll go ahead and remove our castle nut, as well as our washer. Go ahead and remove our brake caliper hardware. And we'll go ahead and remove our brake scrapers. We have our caliper. Flip it out of the way. Grab our hub. And we'll go ahead and remove our tie rod end from our steering arm here. Just like that. To the side, I like to take my hardware, keep it together. We're going to remove it from the factory knuckle here and install it into the portal backing plate. We'll go ahead and start drilling our rivets for our factory brake lines. Pick up right off there like that. It's just going to help us get everything out of the way. We'll take a 15 wrench and a 15 socket and disconnect our shock. Pick up, push down. And we'll just grab this shock and then just ratchet it. We'll just tie it up out of the way. That's good and out of our way. We'll take our drill. Drill this rivet right here. I'm going to have to drill this rivet right here as well. Once you get it close, a lot of times you can take a screwdriver or pry bar or anything like that and just kind of pop it off. And we'll go ahead and we'll disconnect the knuckle from the upper A-arm. Get our hardware removed on the upper and lower. Just pull my bolt out. My nut right back on it, that way we know that goes together. Take our strap loose and we'll slide it down here onto our A-arm. Get it ready to go. First, we'll have to disconnect our sway bar link. Then we'll just kind of rotate our sway bar link away. That way we can move our A-arm up and down. So what we'll do now that our hardware's out of our upper ball joint, from our knuckle, let's go ahead, pick up a little bit. We just utilize the ratchet strap and they got it right out of the way for us, no problem. So then we'll just kind of rotate our knuckle sideways, get our axle, plunge it straight in, and then straight out, we'll remove it. And we'll just go ahead, grab our bolt, and remove our knuckle. You want to drill this brake line off the frame right here as well, so that way nothing is making contact to the frame with this brake line. Then we'll just go ahead to the opposite side and repeat the same exact steps. So moving on to the rear, we're going to go ahead and remove our cotter pin from our castle nut, just as we did in the front. Then our axle nut. We'll go ahead and remove our brake line holder. So we'll just take an 8mm wrench and a 3.5mm Allen. Just take our nuts off. And we can remove our brake line holder. We can go ahead and disconnect our radius arm hardware. Then we'll just pick up on our trailing arm here. Pull our radius arm hardware out and just slide it right back through our radius arm there, just like that. Remove both brake caliper bolts. We can go ahead and just wiggle the hub until it comes off, just like that. And we can pick up, remove our upper radius arm, slide the hardware through, pull our trailing arm out, remove our axle. So then we'll just plunge it straight in and pull it straight out. And we're going to go through and we're going to remove all the hardware out of our bearing carrier here. Make sure that you grab all your washers. Just grab your bearing carrier, pull it off. So next what we're going to do is take our brake line, pop it out of the little clip on the frame. If you grab it and pull on it, it should come right out. And then we're just going to pull all the slack that we possibly can through our brake line here. So we're just going to feed this line all the way down, get as much slack out of the line as we possibly can. So this side is prepped and ready for portals. Now what we're gonna do is repeat the same exact steps for the opposite side. So now we have all of our factory knuckles and axles removed from our machine, got the machine completely tore down, ready to get our portals installed. We're working on the passenger side today. So we're gonna get our passenger side bracket. The way you can tell if it's passenger side or not, if you can look at it, and your steering arm mount will be facing towards the rear, just like this, because it's gonna obviously need to attach to our tie rod. So we'll take our backing plate, slide it down onto our lower ball joint, take one of our OEM ball joint bolts, slide it through just like that, and go ahead and get our nut started on it. We'll go ahead and grab our axle. When I install axles, I like to make sure that my C-clip, the opening, is facing down. This seems like it makes it go in just a little bit better. To find my spines. And then once I get it in there, just gotta pull on it a little bit. Make sure it doesn't want to pop out on you. Pull it down. Slide it in to the backing plate just like this. We'll go ahead and we'll cut our upper strap loose. We'll pull it down, we'll get it lined up. Once we have it lined up, you go ahead and get our OEM ball joint hardware, just like that. Put our nut on it. I'm just gonna take my brake caliper and just lay it out of the way. That way it's not hanging. All right, so once we have this, just like this, we'll be ready to install our steering arm. In your hardware kit, with all your portals, your accessory box and everything, you're gonna have a bunch of different little plastic wrappings with part numbers on them. So if you read this one, 1-SA, that's steering arm, and then right side. So we're working on the passenger side, so this will be the right side. We'll grab 2 of our M12 bolts, slide your hardware through. We'll wanna install it just like this right here. Slide it on there, put our nuts on. And I don't want to fully tighten anything until I take one of my bolts that's going to secure my portal to the backing plate, slide it through this hole right here. All this does is ensures that everything is going to stay completely lined up for us, and we'll go ahead and fully tighten this hardware here. We'll just want to make sure that this is flush. Just kind of hold it in place as you tighten it. See, our bolt still goes in and out easily. We're gonna grab our steering stop and we'll take our short M10 bolts and it will install just like this. Get it all lined up. Once we have them good and started, we'll go ahead and we'll fully tighten those as well. And then if you are running a SuperATV heavy duty tie rod, you'll want to remove your tapered stud from your factory knuckle, and then we'll just slide it right down into the steering arm here. Slide our tie rod on, put our misalignment bushing, and get a nut started on top. And on the bottom, you want to make sure that you install your washer. So then we'll tighten it on top with a socket. So we'll put a wrench on the bottom side. So once you have that fully tightened, you'll want to go ahead and get your cotter pins in. Slide them through, spin them away. And at this point, we're ready to grab our portal. And what I like to do is get one of my recessed nuts ready to go. And we'll just take it, slide it up onto the splines, grab a hold of the output shaft, kind of spin it a little bit. That way we know we're lined up. Just get this axle nut started all the way in. Thread it in as far as you can get it. We'll grab one bolt that'll look just like this, and it's going to slide through this top hole. We'll get it slid through. We'll take one of our M12 nuts and get it started on the back side. And the rest of the bolts will look just like this. Before we put this bolt in, we'll want to get our caliper mounting plate installed. So we'll go ahead and remove this bolt. We'll get our caliper mounting plate installed just like this. Thread that bolt in. And grab one of our long bolts that'll slide all the way through. We'll get one of our M12 nuts, put it on the back side. We'll fully tighten all of the hardware. Then we'll go ahead and remove our recessed nut. We'll put some blue Loctite in the threads here. We'll go ahead and get this installed. We'll want to fully tighten it and then torque it to the manufacturer's torque spec of whoever's axles you are running. So we'll get our recessed nut cap, our cap gasket, and then our small Allen headed hardware. I like to put at least 2 screws in it. That way we know our gasket's not going to move on us. Let's take it up to the portal, thread it on, and we'll just go ahead and fully tighten these. You're going to be careful whenever you're tightening these. They will break off. Just get them tight. Just give them a couple bumps there. To grab our brake caliper, we're going to have to switch sides with our calipers, but the first thing we'll do, that way we're not making a big mess with our brake fluid, is push our adapter back and slide our brake pads off. Sometimes you'll have to go over here to this side to loosen that screw, and it is the same size as the recessed nut cap, but you just want to loosen it up quite a bit. If it does come out, it's not a huge deal. And then we'll depress our factory adapter and slide our brake pads off. And we'll go ahead and remove this factory adapter. We'll just make sure that we don't pull our boots out whenever we do it. Let's get it and just kind of slide it down and out. Then we'll go ahead and grab our new adapters that come with the kit. We'll just go ahead and make sure we remove our hardware first. These can be a little tricky, just you have to have the perfect angle to get them. I like to just kind of do this right here, get them worked into place. Just kind of slide them in equally on both sides. Make sure that your boots go all the way on. We can go ahead and put our brake pads back on. Just snake them on one side at a time there. That right there. Then we'll take our adjuster screw, go ahead and get it reinstalled. We'll just set these in there hand tight for now. We'll have to go back through and kind of readjust them. So at this point, what we're going to want to do is flip our calipers as well as install our new brake lines. So what I like to do first, just to make sure we make the least amount of mess, is I'll take my brake lines loose off my master cylinder, one side at a time. So we'll take one side off, slide our new line on, and then kind of hold that brake line up. And that way it's still attached to the caliper. We're not going to lose a whole lot of brake fluid at this point. And then what we'll do, we'll bust it loose from the caliper when our lines are both in place, and then attach them. That way, hopefully we don't lose all the fluid in our caliper. It just makes it easier to bleed it. So once we come over here to the driver's side, we're going to see the master cylinder, and then we're going to see a plug. We'll want to go ahead and disconnect that plug, set it out of the way for the time being, and then we will go ahead and take our banjo loose. It's not a bad idea once you get close to take a drain pan. That way whenever it all starts to hit the floor, that drain pan is there to help catch it. So there we go. We got it disconnected. Now as you can see, everything's kind of installed in order. So we have a washer. We'll take that washer, we'll set it aside. We'll take this brake line off. This is going to be our driver's side line. Like I said, try to keep that facing straight up. Remove your washer. Then, lastly, we'll have the passenger side line. Remove it, and there'll be a washer right here as well. So there's our banjo. So for just the time being, we'll take our calipers and brake lines. We'll keep our brake line standing up. It doesn't matter how you set it up. Alright, so then we'll have 2 brake lines here. So we'll grab the long one first. You want to make sure that you install the side that has the larger of the 2 bends on it to your banjo. Then we'll grab a washer, slide it on, just like that. We'll grab the side line, and a washer, And then we'll just thread this right back in to our master cylinder. And you will want to make sure that both your lines, curvatures, are going back towards our passenger side. And then we'll just thread it right back in to the master cylinder. Once we have it ran up there by hand, we'll grab our wrench. We'll fully tighten it. And as we fully tighten it, we will want to make sure our lines don't move around. We want to keep them straight up and down. And we'll take our plug, and we'll go ahead and plug it back in. We'll take our longer line, and obviously that's going to be the passenger side. And we'll go ahead and we'll get our caliper set up and ready from our passenger side, just as we did a few moments ago with the driver's side caliper, getting the brake caliper adapter on it. And then we're going to switch calipers from driver's side to passenger side. So now we're going to be pressing our lug studs into our hub rotor assembly. We grabbed all the M12 by 1.5 studs, and we're going to be putting all of our studs on the outermost holes. So we'll just get it lined up and just go ahead and press our studs in. So we've got our studs pressed in. Now we're gonna go ahead, back over to the machine. Grab our rotor, we'll slide it on. So then we'll just push our adapter back, our OEM one. Slide our brake pad off. We'll just kind of hold our boots in place. Slide our factory adapter out. Because we're on the passenger side, when our caliper's installed, we want to make sure that our bleeder valve is to the top and that this hole in our adapter is facing down. So we'll just slide it in just like this, just kind of angle it, wiggle it around a little bit and push on it. Grab a hold of your boots and kind of spin them around a little bit. And we'll grab our brake pads. Grab our other brake pad in and reinstall our pin. And again, we will have to make some final adjustments. Take our caliper, slide it on to the rotor. And I know our brake line hasn't been changed yet. That's perfectly all right. I like to get everything set up how it needs to be and then change the brake line. And then I like to get my hardware started into my brake caliper. Grab our castle nut, get it started. And we want to torque this to at least, bare minimum, 300 foot-pounds. So usually any half-inch drive impact should be able to handle that. We're gonna tighten it up until our cotter pin's exposed. All right, so our cotter pin hole is exposed there. And we'll take our cotter pin, move it away from itself. Go ahead and get our brake caliper hardware fully installed and tightened. It's a 14 millimeter. I like to just use a wrench. So next we're gonna go ahead and remove our brake line from our caliper. We'll just go ahead and grab our drain pan, catch any brake fluid that runs out. And then we'll just go ahead and remove our washer from our banjo. And take the brake line, and we can just sit it right down in our drain pan. And we'll grab our new brake line. Check it out a few different ways, see which way is gonna be the best way for it to run. So once we have it figured out how we wanna run it, let's go ahead and slide our banjo bolt on and then our washer. Go ahead and get it installed. So we'll just go ahead and we'll get our brake line tight here. Make our brake line clips, get them smashed together. Just make sure it's good and started. We'll move on to the next one. We can get another rivet right here. And we can get a rivet right here to hold it on. Like I said, you can do this any way that you'd like. You know, we may end up putting a zip tie on it as well. You know, there's really no wrong way to install your brake line as long as it's not in a bind or anything like that anywhere. So we are going to go ahead and reinstall our shock. As well as our ball joint hardware. and tighten this brake line hardware here. And like I said, the rest of this line, we're probably going to use the factory rivets. You can do whatever you want to use. Next thing we're going to do is on the rear, we're on the passenger side. So we're going to grab our backing plate and we're going to take our bearing carrier that says in the part number R, because we are working on the right side. And we'll find the plate that lines up perfectly. Take all of our Allen headed hardware, go ahead and slide it through. Then we'll grab 4 of our M10 nuts. Line them up with the holes in the trailing arm. Just kind of hold everything in place and go through and get all of your hardware started. Go through and we'll fully tighten all the hardware here. And grab our axle, get it reinstalled, make sure it's fully seated. So we'll pull our trailing arm out, slide our axle right into our bearing carrier. So we'll go ahead and we'll put a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads of the axle shaft there. We'll take the portal, get it slid onto the splines, and get a recessed nut. I like to tighten it by hand, kind of help you hold your portal in place while you're getting all your hardware situated. And we'll just go ahead and take our hardware, and then these bottom bolts will have nuts on them, so we'll just get them slid through. We'll use this one to kind of keep it lined up. We are going to have to remove both of these though to install our caliper adapter. So we'll go ahead and tighten a recessed nut up, just like we did in the front. Then we'll grab our brake caliper. We'll have to go ahead and put our caliper adapter on this one as well. Remove our set screw, just like we did in the front. Flip our pads out. And grab our adapter. Make sure we pull our factory boots off of it before we pull it out. Our factory boot popped off. Not a huge deal, we'll just have to make sure we get it reinstalled here real quick before we move on. So then we'll go ahead and grab our new adapter here. We will just slide it right into position. Push them all the way in. Spin our boots a little bit just to get them seated. We'll take our brake pads, get them laid back in. Then take our adjustment screw, drop it back down in the hole, pull our brake line to the side, just get it started. Grab a recessed nut cap, as well as one of our gaskets and 3 recessed nut screws. Just get one started, get your other one lined up, get it started. And again, like I said, be careful with these, you don't want to break them off. So when installing your hub rotor assembly, you want to make sure that the fins are facing forward. Ours are, so we'll just go ahead and get it slid into position there. We'll take our castle nut. Get it on there. We'll take our caliper. Get it slid on as well. And we'll grab the previously removed hardware, get it installed. So then, once we have everything kind of mocked up so far, we'll grab our radius arms, get them slid into the bearing carrier, grab a hold of the trailing arm, and the portal, just kind of lift up until we get them lined up. Same thing down here on the lower. Get our nuts started, and then we would take our brake line and attach it. So just take our brake line clip here out of the hardware kit, get it lined up with that hole. Just thread it right in. And we'll go ahead and we'll fully tighten all of the hardware back here. So once you have your castle nut tightened to at least 300 foot-pounds, we're going to reinstall our cotter key. And we'll fully tighten our brake caliper hardware. Then we're going to grab our factory brake line holder, get our brake line snapped into it, slide it into position. So the next thing we're going to do is install our drain plug. I like to get it to where it's tight and then put about another quarter turn or so on it. That way we just know it's not going anywhere. We don't want it to back out on us. And you'll want to do that for every portal before you run it. And also, in reality, you should fill your portals up before you install them. It makes it a little bit easier. But we wanted to take the opportunity to show you how you're going to have to fill your portals whenever you go through to maintenance them. With the portal mounted up, we have a funnel here shoved right into the fill hole here, and that'll be directly beside the GDP. So we're going to go ahead and grab some portal blood. You can pick some of this up at SuperATV.com. I highly recommend to purchase some with your new GDP portals. It's 100% worth it. You know, there's so many benefits to having the portal blood over just a standard gear oil. It's just, for the money, you can't beat it. And as we fill it, I like to grab a hold of my lug studs here and just spin the portal. Really circulate that portal blood through the portal. So we'll go ahead and pull our hose out here. So as you can see there, we are absolutely full. We'll let it run out for just a second and then go ahead and get our drain plug in there. Just go ahead and get this fill plug tight. Alright, so that portal is good to go. So now your best friend here is going to be Brakleen. I like to just load it up with Brakleen here all over the box where any portal blood could be. You want to try to get it off there. That way it doesn't look like you have a leak. So now we're just going to be removing our brake line from the distribution block here on the driver's side. The brake line that we're going to want to remove is the one that's forward most, so the one closest to the cab of the machine. So once we have it removed, we're going to grab our brake line extension, we're going to thread it into the distribution block, and then couple it to the OEM brake line that is still attached to the trailing arm. So once we have our brake line extension attached to our distribution block, we're going to take the factory brake line and thread it right into the brake line extension. So once you've repeated all the steps for the opposite side, got your portals installed, made sure your hardware's tightened, got gear oil or portal blood in each portal and the brakes bled, maybe some toe adjustments, maybe some camber, that's all there is to it. To install SuperATV's GDP Portals on this Polaris RZR Pro XP. For more information on these portals or any of SuperATV's great products, feel free to give us a call at 855-743-3427. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.